Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is once again Hollow and we're back for a new tier list video for Elden Ring. This time we're covering the best Dex weapons. Quite a while back I made a video for my top picks for Dex weapons and it included a few options but certainly not all of the best ones. As Elden Ring has changed with patches and I've become more experienced, I think I understand a little bit better about what makes a weapon good. So I have 13 weapons for you for this Dex tier list. As you can see, essentially S tier is your best option, the perfect overall, just does super well in all content weapons. A is still incredible, but lacks the same possibilities the overall powerhouse is. B is still fun and effective, but certainly has weaknesses compared to A and above. And C is an incredible weapon, it's just that it has a significant problem. Any and all the weapons on this list, though, are some of the best Dex weapons you can find in the game. Now, something I also want to mention before we get into it is you will not see things like Moonveil or Rivers of Blood or say the Sacred Relic Sword, which is a faith weapon, even though they are also Dex weapons in this video. That's because this is a video for Dex weapons, not for int weapons, not for faith weapons, and not for say arcane weapons, where those weapons will obviously be. We're looking for things that primarily scale with Dex, and that's what's in this tier list. Let's begin then with an S tier pick then. We're going to begin strong with the Cross Naginata. This long spear with a katana blade at the end of it is absolutely deadly, especially in power stance, where you have the long range poking and thrusting moveset. In PvP, this is an absolute nightmare to deal with, and it's very strong whether you're playing in Keen for your super dex scaling, or you're going a little bit of arcane for bleed, because of course you can run seppuku with these things, making them absolute monsters. The downside of this weapon is obviously its simple and repetitive moveset, where you can't really wide swing, so AoE scenarios it's definitely not as strong, but the raw output and potential of this weapon and how incredibly effective it is, immediately it's an S tier pick, absolutely. Let's go down one to an A tier pick, and we'll also pick up another spear, but this is the Swordspear, the Guardian's Swordspear. These are actually some of the highest AR options you can find for Dex weapons. Scaling super well and having a really high base AR, this moveset is actually unique. When two-handing a single sword spear, you have these sort of uppercut and wider sweeping attacks with the spear, which is unexpected because, yeah, not as much thrusting. This moveset is super quick and wonderful and very fun to use in, say, PvP because its baseline and light attacks are actually incredible at roll catching and trading. People just don't seem to understand the raw pace of these. Then in power stance, you can slow things down, mix things up. So yeah, base AR really good, great damage potential and a unique moveset. The reason that it's not an S tier pick though is just because, yeah, it doesn't have something like bleed, it is just straight dex, so there's just not as much burst potential compared to say the Naginata. Let's come down to a B grade then with the Vulgar Militia Saws. Also on the end of a long stick, these are a bit more halberdy, wider swings and such, and also a simplistic but effective moveset. The downside is the slower swings though, but it's still a long range, solid, seppuku using weapon, meaning its bleed potential is absolutely ridiculous, making it one of the best weapons in the game. It's super effective, you can burst targets down really well with this, and I think it's quite an underrated pick. It also looks pretty gnarly and interesting too. I think it's very effective, but also a bit more specifically bleed focused. Let's come back up to the S grade then for a really good pick. This is the Scavengers Curved Sword, and when power stanced, it's an absolute machine. While it has a lower scaling than other weapons on this list at B dex potential and lower AR than say other S tier weapons you're going to see, it still makes one of the best options in the game because its base moveset is nuts. It has the best roll catch in the game, one of the best jumping attacks, super fast combos with that insane potential of say successive attacks, or of course bleed buildup. The DPS potential is ridiculous because of that, making these an absolute monster in PvE if you're able to go to town on your target, and in PvP, of course, that moveset, the pace of attacks, the bleed machine nature of this weapon, you can pump damage and create so much pressure. Back to the A grade then, we have the Bolt of Gransax, another spear type, and yeah, more iconic and standard spear at that. Focused on thrusting attacks, but with that unique Ash of War that has you throw that red lightning without needing, say, any points in faith. I recently did a build with this weapon and it was extremely effective and very fun to use. The Ash of War is an absolute monster and it comes with base lightning damage, so there's a lot of potential with that, especially against enemies weak to lightning. With its cool design and simple spear moveset, it's definitely one of my favorite spears and definitely a great dex pick. But if you want to talk more thrusting weapons, we also have another one, a heavy thrusting sword, and this one's a boss weapon. The Dragon King Cragblade is quite strong. Good base R, and that simple thrusting moveset makes it a simple but effective weapon. It certainly shines most of all with its Ash of War, where you become this lightning cloud and slam on a target, which can do absolutely ridiculous damage. Not to mention that you have that kind of hyper armor during this. You might take damage, but you're gonna get this off. Certainly a unique and very cool weapon from its visuals, and also the fact that, yeah, that Ash of War looks incredible. The problem, of course, is its super simple moveset, literally just thrusting, and I'm not sure that it really is as effective output wise in terms of DPS than other weapons here. Let's go from bottom to top this time instead with another B weapon. This time we're looking at the Scythe, literally just the Scythe. As far as the dex weapon goes, it's higher in AR than most. You know, you've got the great range, and it's an A scaling weapon, which is great, even coming with its bleed potential. And it's all good, you know? It has a simple and effective Scythe style of moveset with the sweeping attacks and also a bit of the slams. The problem for me with the Scythe and Scythes in general in Elden Ring is their designs are quite dull. Certainly compared to, say, the awesome Scythes like the Bloodborne one that was so cool by comparison. I think the Scythes actually shine best when in power stance though. They get that slower, powerful, very good moveset with great range and great roll catch potential in PvP. Of course, combined with the right Ash of War, it can be super deadly. It's just the design and the playstyle is a bit dull for me, so it's lower on the list. It's definitely B grade that. Now, I'm loath to do what I'm about to do for this weapon. This is the Uchigatana in A grade. Your standard katana, the classic iconic one, the one we can start if we pick samurai with. Baseline great scaling with dex, comes with bleed, you can run seppuku on them of course, making them absolute powerhouses for DPS and burst potential against any bleed target. Good in PvP, good in PvE. But the reason it's in A grade is because I think there's basically the same weapon but better in all content. And that is of course the Nagakiba, which is essentially the washing pole of Elden Ring. It is just the same thing, the same moveset, the same playstyle, basically the same stats. It's just bigger, it's longer, it's more effective, making it more reliable in all content in fact. The moveset of these weapons, the katanas, they're wider reaching so you can deal with AoE scenarios much better than you could say with the Naginata, and it's pretty much my favorite weapon and the default weapon I play with all the time. We can put so many different Ashes of War on these katanas, swap them between bleed or of course keen. They are wonderful weapons, but I just think having the better range is always going to be more reliable, even if there is a small trade-off that it does weigh a little bit more. While I do think the Uchigatana is incredible and could be considered S tier, I just think the Nagakiba is the same thing but better, so it's above it. For our next three, let's mix things up in terms of order, and let's go for an A grade weapon. This is the Hand of Melania, another katana, but this one a boss weapon as well. Now, we all know it, right? This weapon has Waterfall, Dance on it, the Ash of War, which is awesome, super fun, and super effective with the burst potential, especially with like successive attacks and so on. It comes with baseline bleed, it's got good scaling with dex, it's a good weapon, it's almost as long in fact as the Nagakiba. The downside is that as it's a boss weapon, we can't change scaling at all, so it just scales worse than the other katanas on this list. Its value is definitely brought up by its range and also the potential of that Ash of War. But yeah, I guess as I compare it to literally the Nagakiba, it has less versatility, it has worse scaling and stats. So it really comes down to how much do you love its Ash of War, which is fair enough if you do. Here's a weapon type we've not spoke about so far, the Twin Blades. What is the best Twin Blade I could think of for Dex? And I do believe it's the Godskin Peeler, but I still want to put that in the B grade. This one is a unique Twin Blade though. It has the curved end and then the sort of thrusty stabby end. So you've got slashing and stabbing in a mix-up moveset. And with its powerful combos, you can do some big damage with your successive attacks or go for the heavy attacks with say a jumping attack or a charged heavy and use the stabbing, thrusting style of the Twin Blades instead. So it makes for a mixed and fun and flashy playstyle compared to your standard Twin Blades, which are also, yeah, pretty flashy. Statistically though, they do scale really well as a dex weapon. I think it's probably your best option if you are going Dex and Twin Blade specifically. Though it's totally fair and valid to say even the default Twin Blades could be preferred depending on whether you like the difference in moveset. Now we have two weapons left to talk about. Let's finally use the C grade and the only weapon I'm putting in that grade for this video. These are, of course, the claws in general, but we're looking at the hook claws, which have maybe the best DPS potential. Thanks to its incredible A scaling and super fast combos, this DPS potential is nuts. If you have something like consecutive attack buffs from your physic or talismans, you can do crazy damage. And obviously with that, the bleed potential is also nuts. The downside is that it is a super repetitive and simple move set, and because they are tiny little claws, they have terrible range, leading to a lot of awkward situations in both PvP and PvE. You absolutely can make these work, and they're very fun to do so. It's just, I don't know, compared to say the Scavengers curved swords, they're straight up harder to use. So fun, very cool, just a bit awkward when you can't reach or don't stagger an enemy, or there's not those opportunities for the longer combo windows, allowing for the actual DPS and potential of these weapons. Alright, that brings us to our last weapon, and it's another one that I'm kind of struggling to place. Do I want to put it as an S grade, or do I want to put it as an A grade? You guys are going to have to let me know your thoughts on this. We're talking, of course, about the Bloodhounds Fang, which I'll just put in S grade for now. Curved greatswords, I really like. They've always been great in the series. The moveset is satisfying, they have great range, and as a dex weapon, they're kind of heavy. This one comes with that all-powerful Ash of War that the speedrunners were using when testing what's the best weapon to get those normal runs as fast as possible. A double attack with big hits and big damage, and of course, you get that Bloodhound step effect, which is really cool for iframes. Bit awkward to aim though, at times, but super effective, especially when you buff up the weapon with, say, a grease or something like that. It's also great because you can get it very early in the game and run it for the majority of your playthrough. It's a great dex option early game. And while a lot of people did run this weapon, I also thought it a bit underrated in PvP because I would rarely see it despite how effective it actually is. And that's kind of why I think I'm going to put it in an A grade and not an S grade after all. Still, its output potential is really high, and it's great with staggering enemies as well, using the Ash of War or the heavies. But I guess because I just don't see it nearly as much as other S grade weapons, it really should be an A grade. But there you have it. Those are my 13 top dex weapons that I consider some of the best options you have. Let me know, is there anything I missed? Are you upset with me for not including daggers? I guess I would have said the same thing in regards to the hook claws. Or is there other weapons that are really good that I've just missed or not thought about? I'm sure we'd order this list slightly different, but hopefully you can appreciate my reasoning on these videos. If you have enjoyed this video and want to see more tier lists for the other types, like say we got Arcane, Faith, and Intelligence still left, we could do that if you want, so let me know. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.